everyone. It is here Wednesday, July 26th, 2023, right at 9:13 a.m. I do call this ad hoc committee of the Industrial Development Board to order. It appears we do have a quorum, and I will now turn it over to legal.
Thank you, Nigel. So,
Thank you.
As you know, this is an ad hoc committee that this board created, I believe, at your last meeting or second to last meeting. So the first order of business that you would need to do is select a chair for the committee. So you can do that a number of ways. You can either take nominations. Well, actually, really, just don't know what you're doing. It's for someone to nominate one of the committee members to be that. And then obviously you'll vote in the affirmative by majority, and that person would be the chair.
Question. And do we have to nominate? Oh, sorry. I just had a question. Do we have to do like other officers too? Like
No,
just chairs. Only one. Okay, thank you. Mark, sorry, question.
No problem. I want to nominate Nigel as Hodge as the chair.
Oh, okay.
He does a great job.
And nominations technically under Robert rules doesn't require a second. So if you want to go ahead but you do have to vote.
I guess there's any other nominations first.
Yeah. All right, if there are no other nominations, then someone just needs a motion to a second, and then you guys need to vote.
All right. So is there a motion? Or I guess I shouldn't talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put a motion. Yeah, I was going to say, I'll make a motion that
I'll close my eyes.
I'll make a motion that we nominate Nigel Chair for the chair. Nigel Hodge for the chair. Committee.
Second.
Second.
And then you all need to vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Mr. Chair, you can now take over.
All right. First of all, thank you to my colleagues. Take great honor in serving as chair and grateful to this board for you all giving additional time serving on this committee, and thank you to the Metro team and a lot of work David did, so very excited to have this today. We'll move on to item number 2, public comment period. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to speak today? All right, seeing as there is none, we will move on to item number 3, items training session. So obviously this is a training session and presentation on what other IDBs around the state and around the country do. So excited to hear some benchmarking opportunities. Just turn it over to you, my friend. Are you ready to come up?
All right, I'll get excited.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Make sure you introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, because we're getting recorded.
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is David Ware. I've been an intern in the mayor's office this past summer under LaTanya Channel, who's the director for economic growth and small business development. So for the past few weeks, ever since we started talking and having these conversations, especially after the ad hoc committee was created, what I have done is mainly looked at different IDBs from around the state, gathered what they are doing, the successes that they are having, and then gathering some recommendations that I can give to y'all onto how to move forward, just because this committee was created to somewhat give the whole IDB direction moving forward, so that we can kind of figure out, what do we want to do as a board, what do we want to do as an organization, what changes do we want to make. So the first thing that you have is a memo. This is something that I drafted up. It basically has 3 main points that I think would be beneficial for y'all to consider, and then I also provide a method to do that. So the first thing that I think that the IDB as a whole should do through this ad hoc committee is develop an identity and make sure that we identify those that we are trying to serve. So this includes what are our overall goals, who do we want to meet, what companies do we want to talk to, what demographics do we want to see, all of those different things. I go in more detail within the memo itself, but we need to develop and identify a clear identity for the whole board. The second thing we need to do is identify short and long-term outcomes. And we need to make sure that these are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals or SMART goals. And this ensures that these are actually attainable goals that we're trying to reach. So once we develop that identity, we can move into, okay, well, what are the goals that we want to set to make sure that we're upholding that identity that we have? And then the third thing that we need to do is develop strategies to achieve these outcomes. So once y'all have developed the short and long-term outcomes that you want in order to uphold that identity that you've created, well, how are we actually going to get there? So there is a model called a program logic model.
Man, we're going back to school for
Oh, we
real
are.
today. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm glad something for this.
This is something that is used throughout public administration to either, one, adjudicate current programs and identify their shortcomings, or to create a program from a policy. So if you go to the last page of your supporting research, it's going to be all the way on the back, you have a blank one, but I'm going to draw it up here for you. So there are a few things that we identified. First, the top is you have your program here, which we're just going to leave blank for now. Then there are some buckets that we have. So there are inputs, activities, outputs, and then outcomes. And these all have giant buckets where we can put whatever we want into them. And they move in a direction. So inputs lead to activities, activities lead to outputs, outputs lead to outcomes. So if we were adjudicating a current program that existed, the way that we would work through this is figure out, okay, what are the inputs that we have for this program? So that could be staff, that could be money, that could be resource, whatever it is. What is this program doing with those resources? And then what are those things that they're doing leading to in the short term, and what are those leading to in the long term? But when you're creating a program, you do this backwards. So we have to figure out, okay, well, first of all, what is the program that we're doing? What are the goals of those programs? What are the long-term outcomes that we want to see from those? What are the short-term outputs that we need to get there? What are the activities that we need to get to lead to those outputs? And what inputs do we need for those activities? So when I've looked at IDBs from across the state, they have various resources available to them. One of them is, and you can turn to page 6, Clarksville's is probably one of the most, complex is not the right word, but the most robust industrial development board that I saw from across the state. Edge in Memphis is another one, but Clarksville has a lot of different things that they utilize. So first of all, when you look at the organization of their IDB, there's a board of directors, which is what y'all would serve as. However, they have an additional staff, which has an executive director. Under the executive director, there's a director of workforce development, a business development coordinator, and a director of economic development. And then those staff have support staff, which include the CEO, and then various vice presidents and board administrators. So they do the trivial everyday, outreach, all of those things that go up for approval in front of the board. So it's a similar structure to how the chamber works, where there's like a board of directors of businesses that are members of the chamber, and then there is a full-time staff that supports the overall direction of the board of directors. And as you can see, if you look at the large projects, they have done a lot of different things that have been very beneficial to the Clarksville community. So one of the big examples of that would be LG Electronics. They have a giant manufacturing facility that came in. Google has a data center there. LG has another center there. QPI USA has another center there. It goes on and on and on, because they're able to do this with the support staff that they have. So they are incredibly robust in terms of recruiting and retaining businesses, both nationally and internationally. The second thing that they do is they have what's called the partnership. If you go to their website, it has direct links to both the chamber, the Visitors Bureau, and then also the Clarksville city government. And so the partnership bridges efforts to bring new industries to Clarksville. It is an entity that bridges the Visitors Bureau, the IDB, and the chamber together, and acts as one marketing agency for all three of those organizations. And that's how they're able to have that direct outreach to other companies. So basically, getting out of the weeds there, this is something that I think would be beneficial for y'all to work on in order to, 1, develop and identify clear identity, 2, identify those short and long-term outcomes, and then 3, IDBs. I'm not going to go through all of that because I have it for you, but some of the trends that I notice is the IDBs that have strong missions, strong goals, strong focuses, and have strong support are the ones that have the most tangible outcomes, like Edge and Clarksville. So do y'all have any questions?
I have a few, but I'll turn it over to my colleagues just on this part.
Okay.
Before we, thank you, first of all.
Of course.
Yeah, this is very thorough. Yeah.
For doing the research. But I have my thoughts because you used the word strong several times. So, but anyway, Mark, you had a question?
Just for a comment, I'm a big proponent of not reinventing the wheel. So if you have a model that works, we can take that model, just take out what they've done, put our outcomes in it, and I think that's just the path we should take. So it won't take forever to get this done. We need to just expedite this. All done. Yeah.
I guess in reviewing the various IDBs, it seems that they function like a chamber of commerce, and then also they have staff. And so questions I have is like, do you have? Latanya is very capable, but she obviously needs help to do all the robust programming that we need. So in your research, how did they get the staff? That would be a long-term question that we figure out through this. And then secondly, it seems like the programs that you've mentioned all seem to revolve around TIFs and pilots. And then I saw one in Memphis about a small business lending program. What other sorts of programs did you see that maybe stretched beyond just the big job creations, which we know the IDB already does or is involved in, to figure out what other programs should we be looking at?
Yes, so I'm going to focus on staff first, and then you'll have to remind me of all of the other things you said because I couldn't make a mental list. But in terms of staff, something that Nashville has that is unique to Nashville is that someone in the mayor's office serves as the executive director of the Industrial Development Board. No other IDB does that. They have a unique executive director that may act as a liaison to the city government, but a member of the mayor's office does not act as the executive director of an IDB because ultimately that individual has all of the other things on their plate. So they have an executive director that is just for the IDB or whatever they want to call it. When you look at Clarksville's, which by the way, I really, really recommend going to their website, seeing what they have done there because it's fantastic. They have a whole timeline. I don't remember where it is on their page. I think it's like the About Us page, but they have a whole timeline going back to the founding of their IDB to today, which includes both like staff changes, like how they've integrated to the city government, but also all of the really big projects that they've done, and it goes chronologically. But most of these IDBs existed as a third-party entity that was not related to the government, and so they were, it's not that they were for-profit, but they were more of a nonprofit that existed separate from the government that acted as a recruiting agency, and so they were able to get their own funds through that, and then they hired a staff, and then they integrated into the city government versus Nashville's integrated into the city government, and now it's like, oh, well, we don't have a staff. So that's how that happened, and a lot of them is that they didn't exist as an entity within the city government at first, and they already had a staff.
Got it.
And then they went under the city government. And then...
We did
Yes.
used to be like that.
Yes.
Just so you know,
Okay.
too. So.
Which is something that is paralleled about Nashville.
So that was what, about 15 years ago? Yeah.
Well, less than 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And then what were the other parts of your question?
He said what other, he was asking about what other programs too.
Gotcha. Okay. So something that is very unique about the state of Tennessee is that IDBs in the state have a lot of power that they can wield. And with that, something that I think is beneficial that IDBs have done is they're able to create specific programs for their city's specific needs. So like Memphis has a lot of very small niche programs, like they'll have like blight programs and things like that that they specialize specialize in, because like that's an issue that their city is facing. But the other thing is their IDB also acts as the authority over their port authority, which is not something that we deal with as much, obviously, but like they have specific niche needs, and because the state grants so much power to IDBs, they're able to target those specific needs within their city. So a lot of IDBs have those sort of specific programs that deal with needs within their specific city. Memphis is a really big example of that.
Thank you. And in terms of how they got there, it's good to know the evolution. Thank you for clarifying that Nashville used to be that way. And
Yes.
for whatever reason, that's another question. But I guess they've got staff. Sounds like their staff is paid for because they're already self-sufficient. Is that in that About Me section, is there a history of how they became self-sufficient in terms of creating the funding mechanisms for these programs?
So they do not go into Clarksville's IDB specifically. Their website is more tailored to the public than it is to like other entities within the government. So they try to like really simplify what they're doing, because like one example of that would be when they did the big LG plant deal.
Yeah.
They did tax abatements for that, and there were a lot of questions from the public like, hey, why are you, like they were kind of panicking because they had not done a lot of tax abatements or deferments or anything like that before. And so it is a lot more tailored to the public. So I will say a lot of them don't get into the specifics of how that has happened. That would be something where we need to, reach out, if y'all want to reach out as a board and, hear from them and hear how that works. But yeah, so I don't have the specifics of how they're self-sufficient. But
Can you help us with that a little bit?
Yeah.
From the history of what we used to have to how we got to...
I can tell you what I know. We're trying to.
That was before your time as well.
It was before my time, but essentially, you guys were self-sufficient. You had your lawyer was also kind of your executive director.
Outside counsel.
Well, yeah. Well, he was the lawyer for the IDB. So obviously, Metro Legal serves as counsel for you. But back then, when you guys were kind of more separate from Metro,
right,
you had your own lawyer that was representing the board. So he was. When you say outside counsel, I'm not.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you. He worked for an outside firm. Is my
Yeah, I think he may have been in solo practice, but I may be wrong about
Sure.
that. But he also kind of served as your sort of director as well. He did some things that were not appropriate, basically involving the use of some of your funds and your money. And because of that, he eventually, I think he may have got disbarred by the.
Sure.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
I think you had me look this up when I first started.
Yeah.
I feel like
So at that point, the decision was made that it probably made the most sense to sort of bring the IDB to have Metro more involved with the IDB at that point.
Sure.
And so that created a relationship where basically Metro provides the administrative support to the IDB. So that's where the mayor's office, the ECD head, basically serves as your executive director, finance serves as your finance administrator, and then legal is your legal support as well. So it just made sense at the time, and I don't know how much. I think the board was doing a little bit more active at the time. Over time, you guys have started to do a lot less, but at the time, it kind of made sense to have that kind of synergy with Metro, working with you guys one sort of hand in hand together. But obviously, times have changed, so if it makes sense for you to make a change, that's perfectly fine as well. But that's kind of the short of it. Basically, there were some issues that came up, and so the decision was made that Metro probably needed to be a little bit more involved in IDB.
It kind of sounds on the legal structure that it's quasi. You mentioned executive director, nonprofit, acting like a for-profit. Is it a 501c3? Is it a totally separate entity?
No, so the IDB is a public nonprofit.
No. I'm sorry, wrong question. Not you, Josh. The Clarksville.
yes.
Is it a separate? Is it a 501c3 or just a not-for-profit?
As of right now, it's like y'all.
Okay.
So, and to answer your question,
Okay.
Industrial Development Boards are established under state law, and they are public nonprofit corporations.
Okay.
They're not. 501c3 that actually deals with the IRS and federal government status, but it's not a 501c3. But it is a nonprofit corporation, and it is a separate entity than the actual governmental entity that created it. it or sponsored it.
Okay.
So for every IDB, there's a sponsoring government that actually creates it, because you're considered what's called an instrumentality of the government to basically be able to do certain things that the government can't do itself. And so, but you are a separate entity, so you are technically separate from Metro. Clarksville's IDB is technically separate from Clarksville city government.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, the question was for you then. Yeah, it does. Clear it up. Yeah.
So I'll just say this on staffing. This is not the first time it's come up. It's come up, it's going on into my 9th year on the board. So it's come up when I first started on the board. The person in LaTonya's position had several staff members. Obviously, Metro also was using the chamber as well to do some items as well. So the chamber always got money from Metro. Last year, that was cut substantially.
The chamber still does the work. Don't think.
No, I'm with you. I'm just saying that the budget's cut. Right. I'm just saying so. So I guess the question I have I know for you, LaTonya, is obviously Metro, the year just started this month. In your budget, do you have like a budget for increasing your staffing in your department?
No, but I don't want you guys to focus so much on the staff right now because I don't have it.
Sure.
But I think the bigger issue is what do you guys want to do? And then we can identify what staffing needs to support it. And I think also you guys may have a larger discussion of does that staff need to be in the mayor's office? Based on the history lesson that we just got about what happened before and the issues, it looked like the pendulum went from total independence to look like there was an effort to bring in more control. So maybe you guys, we can talk about and consider maybe down the road the better option is if there is a staff, does that staff need to be in the mayor's office or somewhere else within Metro to create that sustainability? Because right now, I'm subject to the mayor.
That's right.
So I'll be leaving. So then you got to start all over again. So that doesn't create sustainability for you and it creates uncertainty. So maybe the bigger discussion for you all, and I can help lead that discussion for the future, is where should that staff sit in Metro to do the administrative work that you need?
No, you're exactly right. This would, depending on what happens in the future. I mean, I think we've had 5 or 6 people in this position just in my time on the board. So you're exactly right. No continuity. Obviously, board members change with terms, et cetera, and various items. So, okay. Well, I would say to this board, obviously we won't have an answer today, but that's certainly something for us to really consider is this what do we need staffing wise? What do we think we need? And then we got to figure out how to get there and how to pay for that potentially.
Strategic plan?
Really quick, if I may. I do think when I'm mentioning staffing, the reason that I mention that and the reason that I emphasized that in here is so that I could show you tools that have been available to IDBs that have been successful. However, these IDBs also have had this for decades.
Right.
So they have had a mission, they have had a direction.
Right.
This is where we have to start.
Correct.
Staff as an input, we need this first before we can justify these inputs that we need. So an example of that would be if you were to go to Metro Council and ask for additional funds to hire staff. Well, this is the first thing they're going to ask you is what are we doing? Why do we need that? What's the direction we're going in? So while it's good to have those conversations about staffing, and I do think that it has been beneficial to other IDBs across the state, they also have started here and worked their way back to grow their organization. So that's why this is something that's very important is we have to start in the bigger picture and then funnel down to see, okay, well, what resources do we need to get there and what resources do we already have to where we can achieve some of these things already. So that is something important to consider.
Can I give a real life practical? I'm sorry. This is your meeting.
No problem.
But a real life practical example going to that. So the job incentives that you guys approved at one of the last meetings.
Last month.
Yeah, at
Metron's
Exactly,
job
that's a
centers.
perfect example. So at that last meeting, I can't remember who it was, gave information on the demographics of the employees that they hired. And if you remember that last meeting, one of the board members said, okay, you answered my question, because the last time you were here, you didn't have that. So the IDB says, hey, if we give a job incentive grant, and then beyond that, we want to monitor how they are filling those jobs, not just the great job that finance does to figure out how many jobs they have and all that, but what's behind the job. What do the demographics look like? Are these actually Davidson County residents that have been hired? What's the ethnic groups that they fall in? Whatever data you guys want to be monitored, once you award that grant, then staff needs to do that. But what do you guys want to monitor? What do you care about when you guys approve a job incentive grant? As opposed to, I think it was a November meeting when one of the board members said, hey, you're giving us this, but can you give us a breakdown of, how many black employees, Hispanic employees, et cetera? They came back the last meeting and provided that. But is that something you want every single organization to provide? Well, then that will be an outcome. Right? And then, of course, you can fill in later with what staff is needed to monitor that, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it makes
just a
sense.
practical example of just one thing that you all do.
Can I interchange this with just calling it a strategic plan?
Yes, yeah.
Because being an ED, I have a board, and what we did is we hired a consultant to do board training to come up with a strategic plan to be implemented. Now, it doesn't do any good to have a strategic plan if you don't have any staff to implement the plan. So I'm going to address this like a strategic plan and say staff is, if it's not the most important, it's the second most important thing to even produce any of those outcomes that we want to see. Because we're just a board.
But I do think, to LaTanya's point, you have to have those outcomes to justify the staff. And that's something that y'all can do now with the resources that you have available. And the second thing I will say is, I do think the chair is correct in that there is a lot of course, it's a board, so there's turnover here, and in the existing structure, there's turnover in LaTanya's position. This can act as your consistency, because if you have a direction, it doesn't matter who sits here and it doesn't matter who sits there, because this is what they're working towards.
No, I totally agree. I think we can definitely backwards plan. That's what we did when I was a teacher. And I think, broadly speaking, it might be helpful to
Say that one more time.
backwards planning.
After that, I just didn't hear you. That's all. Sorry. I thought you said something after that. I'm sorry.
You're good. I think, broadly speaking, we just need to come up with ideas that we want as a board. I think, me personally, I joined this board to add transparency and bend the scales towards progress of the city for individuals that haven't received the benefits. They don't work for Phillips, it's a great company, or HCA is a great company. And if those programs are implemented, I'm thinking like additional small business loans. That's a program that I would like to hear about for in the affordable housing world, we call it soft money. So like low interest or no interest debt to provide gap financing for affordable housing, which is tied to these jobs. Because as much as we love Oracle, we know that Dickerson Pike is going to be gone for what it currently is, because there's not housing policy tied to it. So if there is a job discussion on the table, then they need to be aware that, hey, this is an outcome that we want. How can you help us? So I would like housing production loans as an outcome. And I don't know how we get that.
But I think even with that, your vision in terms of a long-term outcome, because you can make this as broad as you want, for this board is, okay, I want transparency to be there. Okay, well, what are the outputs, the short-term outputs that we can have to promote that transparency? You work backwards. What are the activities that we need to be doing to promote small business loans, gap financing, and then what inputs do we need to do that? So even just in that conversation, you're already doing that backwards planning.
And some of the outcomes I want to see is along with Josh. I'm here for affordable housing. So making it accessible to a lot of nonprofits, the larger, as you mentioned, the oracles of able to use the TIF, taxes, funds, all those things more accessible and explained on how to use them. I'm getting calls all the time. How do you even get those dollars? So make it more accessible and an explanation behind them. That's one of the outcomes I want to see. And I think that's what the website was all about, generating a website. So that should be one of the outcomes, to have a website.
All great points. Vice Chair, did you have something you
I
want
was
to add
just
to
going
that?
to add to outputs too. I think we've brought in a lot of jobs, but we haven't actually thought about where the people who do work at these companies live, which you brought up through housing. Where do their kids go to daycare and school? Like, how can we support their families so that they can actually be a part of our community? How do they get to their job, right? Like, how are they getting around the city? How, we did the North Nashville Transit Hub, but there are probably more ways we can help the actual workers of these companies, right? And that's a citywide thing, but I think that to the extent that we have a duty to help in economic development in Nashville, we cannot bring companies here if their workers cannot live here. And so for all of our outputs, a holistic approach to what it means to be a worker and to live here and what they need, I think has to be forefront.
So you're saying kind of looking at, all right, we got jobs, check. All right, we approved North Nashville. All right, because that was a pilot deal for WeGo. But then it's like, okay, so the people at WeGo, where do they work? Obviously. All right, so it's great that they have public transportation, but then they have a job, they need to catch the bus. Where are their kids going? So, okay.
Is that
So kind of looking at every piece of, every facet of it, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think to the extent our housing is more expensive than Atlanta, right? Like, where are these people going to live if we bring the jobs here, right? And if you can't have housing for people who work here, then you can't grow the economy.
And these are all examples of contingencies that you guys can monitor as a part of these agreements. And it's important, I think, that y'all have those conversations before things are being implemented so that you can say, okay, you're coming before us, like if we were to say WeGo, for example, well, these are all of the things that we need you to do in order to get X, and these are the ways that we are going to monitor those things to assure that you are doing them in return for what we are doing for you. And doing that beforehand, if we're saying, okay, well, we want to support, like, these are all great things, transparency, accessibility, affordable housing. From there, y'all can come up with contingencies for the things that you offer to ensure that those are being promoted.
monitoring?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think every agency, including Metro, Barnes, has come to the conclusion we can put it out there, but if we don't monitor what's going on, we're not sure if it's really meeting the goals or if it's running efficient. So that's another model we can kind of follow.
And in terms of monitoring and publicizing all of those things, again, I would really recommend you look at the Clarksville LG deal, because they even had a whole marketing team go in and create an entire infographic saying, okay, I know that we offer these tax abatements, but these are all of the contingencies that LG has to abide by, and here's the progress that's being made on those contingencies. So it's X amount of jobs for Clarksville residents, it's this much investment in community, it's this much investment in XYZ, and they have laid it out very clearly, which I'll email to y'all.
And it's continually updated.
Yes. So they continually update that throughout the process so that the public feels, okay, I understand why they're not paying taxes in the traditional fashion. I understand what they're bringing to the table, and I know that my government is holding them accountable to that.
But it sounds like they hired quite a few consultants to get their strategic plan done. Is that the direction we're going?
That's
It can be what y'all want it to be.
for us to decide.
Right, I think, I'm just looking at it from a business standpoint. I could spend a lot of time coming up with this. I'd rather have professionals say, okay, like what you're doing right now, your outcomes,
No, I'm with
let me fill in the gaps for you.
No.
Yeah.
So, well, do you have, before I comment, do you have any comments on that? To what he just said or what?
I mean, I think before we bring on a consultant or even have that conversation, I think we as a board need to decide what are the other outputs that we want to get there, outputs and outcomes.
I agree.
Because they're the ones that are specialized and, okay, here's another program in Chicago that did this. And that's what all these facets look like. I think in order to do these things, just speaking on outputs, we need a sizable bank account. Like,
That was the next one. See some money.
Yeah, so I think all great points. A couple of things, we don't have to spend all day on staffing, but I do just want to make sure, because it came up, currently we do have an interlocal agreement with Metro that was approved by the board last year and approved by Metro Council right about a year ago. A 5-year agreement for Metro to continue to provide service for us. That agreement does have an early termination clause in both parties. Okay, so if that was something this board decided to do, we're not locked into that agreement. Okay, so that's one option. Same thing for Metro. If they decide, hey, we don't want to. They have early termination clause as well with notice. So sure that. I think this is just my take. So there's a lot of stuff. Basically, what we're trying to do is basically build something, which is exciting. Really build something from the ground up. Okay, so I'd say once we decide on some of these outcomes, my recommendation to this committee would be to get focused and prioritize. All right, so there's a bunch of stuff we've named that we talked about in our general meeting and today that will all be great, right? But we got to start. Right. And focus on something to get it going. And I'll just say to your question about finances, I'll make sure that in our next general meeting we can update on what our balance is. But I can tell you it's not if we want to hire somebody just salary wise to be executive director, based on what we have currently, no, we're not. Now, there's also obviously been conversations about increasing some of our fees, etc. So we also need to determine that. To your point, and I'm just using this example, bond fee deals. Just use this as an example. If we did, let's say we did 6 this year, which we probably won't do. It's about to be August, but let's assume we did 6, and even if we did like $4,000 a pop, plus every year charge the annual fee. I'm just telling that. So we've got to look at. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't change our fees. I'm not saying that, but my point is we've got to look at. That's right. And yeah. So all things to think about. But again, that's where maybe we get potential consultant kind of help us lay that out once we decide here. But what I've heard from this board the past couple years is affordable housing for sure. Yeah. We want to do more. We want to do more affordable housing. So I think that's consistent. And David, what you said about TIF deals, that certainly seems to be another option that we have that's unique to this board that we can, utilize. Obviously, we did Madison Station earlier this year, which included some affordable housing. So maybe that's something we really need to focus on as a board and as a committee to try to take advantage of using that more as well to try to help with affordable housing. But again, that's for this is for the committee to decide. But first, again, I think we've got to think about, all right, what are the couple items, 2 to 3 items we want to focus on immediately as far as outcomes go, and then, all right, well, how do we get there? And obviously, there'll be more stuff that'll come. I mean, it's a lot.
It should be just the main outcomes. We don't want to have a list of 10
That's
items.
right.
We just want 3, maybe 4.
That's right. All right, said, what I've heard consistently, I feel comfortable saying, is we want to do more affordable housing units, point blank, period.
Correct.
I will say, going off of that, what other IDBs do that help guide that is will have a central mission statement, and then they will have central goals that follow that. So if most people in Nashville have no idea what the IDB is. So if I was a resident, how would you say in like a sentence, maybe 2 sentences if we're feeling frisky, but 1 sentence, what would you say the mission of the IDB is? And then following up on that, what are those 3 central goals that you could advertise? So if someone goes on the IDB website, they say, okay, here's the mission statement, and here are the 3 central goals that we're going to get from there. And here is what we have done and what we're doing to get there.
Fortunately, I just got through all this with our consultant for our board, so it's like, oh my goodness, I'm hearing it again. It's like the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know exactly what we need to do.
So
go about it.
I'll read this. This is on the website.
Okay.
Okay. This is on our website because this is what it says our function is. And then you all think about that and tell me if you think that captures what we're trying to do. Okay. Now, okay. And I'm going to read this exactly. The function of the Industrial Development Board is to acquire, own, lease, and dispose of properties to the end that corporations may be able to promote industry and develop trade by inducing manufacturing, industrial, and commercial enterprises to locate in Nashville.
Wow, that's very narrow. Has nothing to do with affordable housing. Doesn't branch out.
That's not to be negative. I'm just asking you. So if somebody went to that website and read that, do you think that is consistent with the conversations of this committee?
No.
Is that some state statute that put that function?
That's more like an action.
Or is that a mission statement that we came up with 20 years ago?
I don't know the answer to that, but I think some of that language that I heard is actually in the statutes.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's the case, and that's another.
So now I've said this last year. I do believe that eventually I would love for this IDB to buy land because this as a board we can buy land and control development. Right. That's something that we can do. I wouldn't say that's probably something we can do today.
Right.
But eventually, whether I'm on the board or not, it might be several years, but that would be like awesome to do. But there's a lot of stuff we have to do to get there because then we can control the development. Obviously when you talk about manufacturing in here, I work in real estate also. I don't know that there's a lot of manufacturing coming around. Just due to cost of land and what's going on. So maybe that would be, I don't know, maybe that would be kind of a challenge to this board, to this committee, I should say. I keep saying board, but to the committee is to say, maybe at our next meeting, discuss or come up with mission and think about individually, like what are the goals that we want for this board that captures what we're trying to do now.
So I would just add that under this statute, property isn't defined, and they talk about real and personal property. So when you look at that mission statement, just make sure, and those are words coming from the statute, right? When you look at our current mission statement. I think sometimes in lay terms we think of property as like a thing you can touch, but that's not what that means.
That's true. It's not just real property.
Right? It means intangible property, personal property, real property, all property.
But
You may understand, but the public would understand.
But do you think, so to your point, and I'm not saying we change this, but do you feel like that encompasses what we're trying to do now? If you read that, would you say, oh, this board wants to be intentional about small business, this board wants to do more with affordable housing? That was really why I read that, to ask you the question.
Yeah, I think it does, right? If you're talking about like a very short one sentence based on the statute, to acquire, own, lease, and dispose of properties, that can be small business grants, right? Because a grant is property, it's money. It can be a TIF or a pallet, right? Because you're still talking about taxes or actual land. When you talk about even our pass-through stuff, right? That's still property that comes, it's money that is flowing from the state to a company. Fees that we're getting our property we're taking in that then we're using in other ways. If we are doing what housing has recommended in its report to increase fees and therefore bring in more money to help with economic development and housing, that's still property we're taking in and then using in a different way, right? And the manufacturing, industrial, commercial enterprises in Nashville, that's just sort of the catch-all for economic development, and economic development is super broad. Now, maybe we want to look at the statute and see if it's been amended since like 1950, whatever, when this was written, and like the wording needs to be updated to better reflect the statute, but it's still, this is a really, really broad mission statement. When you think about property, it's all the types of property.
I like the way, I just want to say, I like the way Quinn broke it down, and I mean, that's a great explanation. But if I was just going to the website and I was doing affordable housing, like before I knew about the IDB board, I would say, well, that has nothing to do with me. That has to do with just large corporations. And what comes to there, they either okay it or turn it down. It's like a job. It doesn't seem like any place I would go to get any assistance or help. And it sounds like we want to be more of that. So
I will say, going off of that really quick, accessibility, like you're saying, is really important. And if you go to Wilson County in your packet, they have an about section where you can get into what the current mission statement is and go into all of that and explain it like you did, because that, like the way you explained it, we could have a whole about section where we go into that and go into the specifics. But their mission statement is to attract new investment into Wilson County in order to keep pace with our rapid growth while providing a quality lifestyle for our communities.
that's a mission.
That is their mission statement. Now, you get into their about, and it's the Joint Economic and Community Development Board of Wilson County, Tennessee is a governmental economic development. That's where you get into that.
Right.
But their mission is, hey, we're growing, and we're doing it sustainably, and we're looking out for you.
Yeah, our mission statement sounds like what we do, but it's not a mission statement.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what we do in our meetings every day, but that's not what our mission is. We don't have a mission.
So, right. So, again, it wasn't really to pop, but I'm just late to. No, it's fine, but that's why I read it. So, other item I would add to that too. So we can keep that. I'm not saying that we have to change that piece completely, but certainly we need to add some more details. But the other piece is, what is our vision? That's another question. What's our vision? What do we? Because a vision is not what you are today. It's what you're aspiring to be tomorrow. And I would challenge this committee as well, because that's something that we can do without a consultant, is also, what is our vision? Like, to your point, what is it that so we've got what this function statement is, mission, but what is our vision? What are we trying to become? Because to me, I think that determines from this committee what we discussed, that then determines the types of recommendations we then make to our larger board members on the future of this board. Is we're doing all this, but what are we trying to get to, and sum that up as well.
And I think those correlate heavily with your goals. Mm-hmm. And that vision statement can be, okay, here are our goals and here's what we're trying to do with them and here's why we're doing that. So.
Hey, Dave, I got a question. I mentioned before you sounded exactly like our consultant. So, I mean, exactly. He said exactly the same word.
Maybe he's taking this video and for his consulting. That's why I brought this whiteboard in.
You think I'm an intern, but really,
Still in school.
I know, I'm thinking more. You sound just like the one we're paying. Hold on, let me do. But can you? I know our consultants take us from the board training all the way to the end of the strategic plan package. How far can you take us in this process, or do you have to eventually say, okay, I have to stop right here? Because from the skills you're presenting right now, you could take us to a strategic plan. But is that something that you can do, or?
So I'm going to be frank.
Be frank.
I have a week left in this internship. However, I would be happy to continue working with y'all in some capacity. capacity, but what I will say is, I mean, I have to keep in mind, like, I am a full-time grad student, so like, the reality is, like, if I'm doing this we can talk about this later, but
Enough said. I got what you're saying.
What it is, once this ball gets to rolling, you have to have someone keep it rolling.
Right.
Yeah. But if we don't have someone doing that, then it's like,
long story short, I'm not going to be in this capacity for much longer, so if I need to be in a different capacity, that's fine, but we can have those conversations later.
understood. Yeah.
Well, we talked about a lot today. I know which is great.
board meeting.
About an hour right now. Was there anything else that you want to cover today that you thought you didn't or you want to go into? Because I know we kind of start open discussion too, but.
So what I will say is I felt like this was going to be an educational meeting. And I do think that, being able to sit on this until the next committee meeting is going to be beneficial. What I will say is something tangible that y'all could work on in passing and possibly work on at the next committee meeting before your full board meeting is drafting that mission statement, and you could have that adopted by the full board. So that is a start of something tangible from this strategic plan that we can begin towards. I mean, even if you're feeling, excited, we can start with central goals and vision. But I would challenge y'all to think about this, especially this part, because we need this before we get down here. But think about this, come to the next ad hoc committee meeting, and then you can maybe adopt something in the full board meeting following that.
So sounds like there's homework. Back in, like I said, I was like back in school today.
I know. Like I need more homework. Yeah.
Right. So.
And I think it's important to remember, right, like any nonprofit, whether it is like a community board or this, like sometimes you're more of a working board and sometimes you're more of an oversight board, and right now we're really in a working board phase.
Right. Yes, we are. Yeah, I agree with that.
So here's what I would say, ask the committee, and I won't ask the committee to do anything. What I want to do is, obviously very busy time for a lot of us. School's about to start here soon as well. But I would challenge the committee, let's think about mission statement, think about vision. If you have time, let's think about some goals specifically for our board. Not maybe 2 to 3. I think, and this committee may be different, but I think and what we like to do would be maybe beneficial is discuss those in our next committee meeting. If we feel like we've got three goals that meet the SMART, specific, measurable, time-related, we can present those to the board after our committee meeting. If we feel like, I would ask you all to also jot down some mission vision. Maybe we can come up with one in our, committee meeting, which we'll try to keep. Obviously, we'll have an hour because the board meeting will start at 10. So if we put it together in the meeting, great. We'll present it to the board following that. If not, maybe we'll have to continue. But I would ask us to kind of, individually think about that, jot some ideas down.
Can I just throw some ideas out there for you, just for
Sure, thank you.
You all may want to consider, regardless of where you land. So Montgomery County, Clarksville, they have a heavy focus on asking whoever comes before them for whatever, childcare. So if you're coming, hey, you got to give us a childcare facility for your workers who are going to be in X building or X location.
You're saying in their county, anybody that's coming up for any type of grants, they have to provide child care for their employees?
So, for instance, let's say if someone's coming for a TIF.
Oh, okay.
That's the station.
Right, sure.
Right. And you're going to have some new development over there. You're going to have, I think, live, work, and play over
Yes,
there.
that's right.
That could have been a part of the discussion to make sure that there's some child care over there. Maybe that could have been part of the discussion with Oracle, depending on the type of incentive that you all were considering. Another thing to also think about is small business space, particularly like restaurants with commercial kitchens. So if you have any deals, again, that may involve construction. I mean, think about East Bank. Who knows what road you guys are going to have there. So there's an opportunity for small business restaurants to have some space, at some lower cost.
Sure.
Provided with commercial kitchens. Also think about the possibility of reduced or incremental rental rates. For instance, I'm going back to Madison Station again. We know that there are some existing businesses that are there that may have to move once the new development comes in. So maybe you all can ask for that particular developer to provide supportive services to those businesses, or maybe find ways, creative ways for them to stay. Maybe an incremental increase in the rent for them to stay at that particular location. Again, supportive services for any existing businesses that may be impacted by some development, that for any projects that you all consider. We do have some small business ecosystem providers that work closely with Metro. Maybe part of the deal is making sure they work with those providers to provide those services to those particular businesses that are already there that may be impacted by the development on whatever you're looking at and approving. So these are just some things to think about.
Yeah, I reviewed that, and very good, very good. So there's already a working model for these items within Metro, or is it? So I'm trying to think. I like the child care, small business, supportive service, wraparound services, incremental for the businesses there. Is that something to implement those, we would have to actually come up with the criteria within the TIF, or is there already a model that we could use to go by?
I'm sure there's some models out there that we can copy, but I'm just saying as far as your outputs and outcomes, consider some of these.
Okay. These are just items for us to consider.
Okay.
And then we can get into the how part later.
But there's, to your question, so for Madison Station TIF, there wasn't, a requirement per se that, you have to provide XYZ daycare services for new residents, or, all right, for the rental, for the current residents, right? Obviously, the rent will likely go up to brand new development. So to LaTanya's point, well, what happens to those businesses? So she just, we could have asked, well, can you make sure that you have incremental rent increases where, all right, your rent goes up some, but it's stepped up over time so that those businesses can stay.
So we had the power actually within those TIF deals to actually put those stipulations in if we.
I will say Clarksville, for example,
That's right.
they did an industrial business park, and as a part of that, so that the tenants of those areas have childcare, is that the developer had to build a childcare facility.
Right.
That was the condition.
Okay.
And that did happen. So that's an
I've seen
example.
a lot of small businesses get displaced because of another developer coming in, and they're not able to come back in because they can't afford the rent. But they get some assistance from the city. They might get a code, they might get a SP or something to allow them to do this, but it impacted the small businesses that were there. And I've seen that actually happen in one area in particular. Yeah.
So given that we are designed to serve the mission and goals of the city, does it make sense? Granted, we're all pretty well involved in the community, but I think it's egotistical to think that we know all the needs of the city. Does it make sense to talk to other individuals as we're creating these mission statements and goals?
Of course.
Oh, yeah, I think.
I'm saying to invite people in here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And I think you all,
most
before I
definitely.
even came on board, you all did a lot of that last year. You had Angie Hubbard from Housing, Hannah's here from Housing, come and talk to you about the city's affordable housing strategy and things you need to consider. Maybe one of the things
We had him come. He was there too.
Okay, great, awesome. So, depending on what the area is, and maybe that's something the board as a whole, maybe once a year you guys want to have updates from particularly those entities within Metro that touch on what you do.
So while we're on it today, is there anyone from Metro you all would like to hear from in the near future, specifically?
That's a good point.
Do you all want, I don't know, if I get to it, would you all like to do that at next month's meeting then? Before we get to this, is hear from?
Yeah, let's make a list of what we want to invite and have them come.
Yeah, I would love to hear more. So I think we're removing silos within Metro government. I was writing down just a general idea of a mission statement. It's like catalyze economic development to the benefit of all Nashvillians such that we work efficiently with other arms of government and the community to create a more just and equitable city. And I think in order to do that, we need to hear from the other arms of government that have so many reports that have maybe not been implemented. I think another person or persons we need to invite are honestly, politicians, because they're directly connected to their communities and know.
Is there anyone particular you had in mind? 'Cause we have had, obviously Councilman Withers from District 6 came to the meeting. Previously, we've had Councilmember, I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, we've had Councilmember Berkeley Allen before us. We've had Councilmember Mendez in the past. Is there anybody?
I think honestly, a new mayor.
You're right, I was going to say.
Like if we are even considering breaking our agreement, not breaking, modifying our agreement and moving out of Metro's current structure, we're going to need to work with city government to do that.
Correct. Absolutely.
So I think it might be beneficial to hear from a new mayor.
In the future.
In the future.
Yeah. Well, it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So let's put you on the spot. Are you free at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, August 9th?
Not, but my boss will be here and representing.
Can we just, if this is up to this committee, but instead of us maybe making the 9th a work session, instead, we've got Tom, we like to hear about affordable housing during the meeting. Is that what you're saying?
You continue momentum on the 9th with your work session, and then maybe add another meeting in September, and then have housing come.
Okay.
And you can continue what you started today.
Well, it's up to the committee.
Well,
What do you all want to
establish
do?
more meeting dates.
Yeah, I mean,
You can't do it all in one meeting.
Yeah, it's up to you all.
and I think too, when we think about housing or other branches of Metro too, we kind of even move into activities. And so I do think we can keep moving forward on a mission statement and some big bucket goals, and then start plugging in activities as we talk to people. I would love to see housing here. I would love if everybody on the board took the time just to pull the 2017 plan to play and look at quality of life factors. That, we could get Parks in here to do that, but that's such a good report that's still super relevant, that played directly into Madison Station.
Totally.
That would be good to look at.
All right. So do you want to keep August 9th kind of work session, go through mission, vision, and goals?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll plan maybe for September. We'll have you and your boss.
We'll be here.
So Mark, we'll make sure. All right. Well, it's here almost 10:15. Any other comments from?
I think in terms of thinking other people that might want to talk to, I think there's nonprofits out there that are well ingrained in the community that know what they need.
Yes.
So I think we could invite some big nonprofits.
So maybe.
Even the chamber too.
Yeah,
The
totally.
chamber still does workforce development, education.
And we have Alliance for Affordable Housing now, so you have the large, well, I won't say the largest, but 10 nonprofits that represent that organization. So you actually get 10 for one. So we have them come and speak as well.
And the state of Tennessee, we've always had a really good relationship with economic development in the state of Tennessee, and worked on a lot of projects with them, and it would be good to.
Very integral.
And again, going back to Clarksville, part of why they're so successful is because of that. And of course, they have it as a formal entity, but that partnership between them, the chamber, the Visitors Bureau, y'all could also look into what sort of entities do we want to make more of a permanent fixture within the IDB's sphere, whether that's the chamber, whether that's the state, whether that's the city, whatever. But that is a really big part of why Clarksville's so successful, is because of that partnership.
And it does seem like over time Nashville had more of a partnership that is currently not in existence.
Partnership with?
With the chamber
Oh,
and the
okay.
mayor's office
Oh,
and
okay.
the state, and there was, and there are a lot
seems
of reasons.
different now.
It seems different.
I understand.
Just so you know, the person sitting in my seat works very closely with the state and the chamber, in spite of the news reports, because we have to. Another thing also, in line with Josh's point about other nonprofits, I think it's key that you identify the specific industries those nonprofits are in, which you all are impacted. So if anybody's engaged in large-scale workforce development, you guys need to know that, right? So you can educate your developers and those who come before you, when you approve those jobs grants. Well, guess what? This organization can help you fill those jobs.
Also MDHA. I think they need to come.
CVC as well.
Research shop at the.
What did you say, LaTanya?
NCDC.
Would you say
Research shop at Metro.
Yeah, they want to.
Oh, okay.
Can you repeat that one more time? So everybody-
Metro Social Services has a really
yeah.
good research team.
Yes,
They do
yes.
the needs evaluation, but they would have daycare and wage.
Oh, yeah. So we got so many resources. That's what I said. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just invite. They'll tell us. We fill in the gaps.
All right. Well, anything else from this committee? All right. Well, David, again, thank you very much for all the research and putting this together. You may not see all of it done before you leave, but certainly you've certainly made an impact. So certainly appreciate it. Very helpful for us as a board. So with that, it is right at 10:19. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Everyone have a fabulous rest of the day. Thank you all for your time.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.